Now, for the reason I'm actually doing this musical theatre special, someone got in contact with me. His name is Tom McGrath. He's from Tipperary and now living in London. And one of his musicals, called The Queen is Mad, has been performed off the West End, which is huge for an Irish director and writer. It is absolutely incredible. His name is Tom James McGrath, and I also chatted with him at the start of December and asked him a lot about his musical, and it's absolutely incredible, and his journey to actually going over to London and living there to make his career. So let's get right into it.
Well, I'm from Nina, and I went to school in the CBS there, and then went to college up in Dublin. And then I was doing medicine in Dublin in college, but I spent my free time in the Drama Society, and that's where I started writing musicals and putting on musicals. So I got really into that and really wanted to do that with my life. I was doing that for a couple of years after college then in Dublin, then moved over to London to work in pop music for a few years. Then when COVID happened and everything kind of just stopped overnight, and I realised I really missed musical theatre. It's where my heart really was. And so for the last few years again, now I'm back in writing musical theatre in London, and just really I work part-time as a doctor, and then when I'm not doing that, I'm writing musical theatre. So that's me in a nutshell.
And how did you first get into music growing up? Did you have an inspiration, or was that just totally out of the blue?
Mom was definitely my inspiration. I can remember her teaching me. She was a primary school teacher, and I remember her teaching me how to play the xylophone and read music before I could even read text or go to school. And then she was determined we learn how to play instruments. So she sent us to piano lessons and also to traditional Irish music lessons. So I play the flute and the tin whistle as well. Yeah, so both my parents were very supportive of me growing up, encouraging me to do music.
And was there any musical theatre inspiration in your family, or was it just yourself?
No, I mean my family would always we'd watch musicals at Christmas, and I grew up watching Singing in the Rain and The Sound of Music, but I kind of caught the musical bug when I was really into horror films as a teenager. And when I was 14, the Joel Schumacher Phantom of the Opera musical movie came out, but I didn't know it was a musical. So I was very excited to go and see what I thought was going to be a horror film of the Phantom of the Opera, because I knew the book. And when I went to the cinema and they started singing, I thought, well, how boring, it's a musical. But then about 10 minutes later, I just it really sucked me in, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is the best thing ever. And up to that point, I was very much doing piano because my mother was encouraging me, and I did my piano practice. I kind of viewed it almost the same as homework. I did it because I knew it's the thing that should be done, but I had to be told to practice by my mom. But then from that point on, I remember I used my pocket money to buy the score for the Phantom of the Opera, and I learned to play the whole book by myself, and that was the first time I'd ever wanted to play the piano. I'd had to practiced without having to be told to practice, and from there I really got the musical bug, and so just really got into musical theatre from there.
And I know you said you kind of started doing pop music was it college, but was musical theatre always something obviously that you wanted to get into further down the line because you'd done that in your free time in college?
Yeah, I suppose pop music was kind of like this itch I wanted to scratch, and I was doing musical theatre in Dublin, but then I thought, since I suppose was a 6-7-year-old, was really into pop music as well, and it was just something that I really wanted to pursue. So I decided I'd just try now or never, I suppose. So went to London to write commercial, not to sing, but to write commercial and produce commercial pop music. There's still a lot of pop music in the music that I write, and definitely I learned a lot about how to get a list, because in pop music it's all about getting the listener's attention and doing the most you can with the least amount of time and the simplest form. And I definitely have that at the forefront of my mind when I'm writing songs for musical theatre.
It's quite different writing musical theatre songs to, I suppose, normal pop songs. Tell us how that process works.
Well, I write with my writing partner, Amy Tasker, who I met in London. So I write our partnership is we both write the lyrics and the book is like the spoken word. And then I write the music myself. And so our process is we'll plan out the whole story of the show in advance. We'll decide what the plot is going to be and what the arc is going to be for the characters. And then we will decide, it's called song spotting, what are the parts of the story that are going to have songs, and what are those songs going to be, and what's going to happen in those songs. And we'll decide kind of the rough length of those songs, and what's the mood, what's the feel, what's the music going to be, what's going to happen to the characters. And generally we'll write the musical from start to finish. And for each song, we'll have decided what's going to happen in those songs, in the lyrics, generally what the title is and what the structure is of the lyrics. before I write any music. We just generally just have the title and a map of what the story for the song is, but there isn't any specific lyrics written. And then I'll write a draft of the song with all the music and a draft of the lyrics, and then I'll send that back to Amy, and she'll do her draft of the lyrics of what I've given her. I mean, every writing team has their own process, but that's the process that really works for us.
With your musical, it's a little bit of a history lesson. The Queen is Mad. Tell us a little bit about it.
I was in Madrid 2 years ago in one of the art galleries there, and saw this painting of a woman who was crying over a dead body, and I just thought, gosh, it really just hit me. The picture, I was like, who is this woman and why is she crying? And so I looked up the painting, and it turned out to be this Spanish queen called Joanna of Castile, who was the older sister of Catherine of Aragon. So she was Queen of Castile in Spain 500 years ago, but she went down in history as Joanna the Mad. What did actually happen to her was she was locked in a tower by her husband and her father, who claimed she was insane, and she was locked in a tower for the rest of her life. But modern historians think she wasn't insane or mad at all, that she was an assertive woman who would not be told what to do, who was punished as a result. And so I was telling Amy about this person who I just learned about in Spain, and Amy said, oh, but Tom, that happens to women all the time still today. So the show is very much about, even though the story is set 500 years ago, the patriarchy continues to oppress assertive women. And that's very much what the show is about.
Like, I'm a huge musical theatre fan myself, and it being about the elder sister of Catherine of Aragon, Queen #1 of Six the Musical, did it play any part of the research of writing the show?
I mean, certainly Six has had amazing success. I'm certainly aware of it, but I've actually never seen Six myself. So it wasn't. I can honestly say it wasn't an inspiration or an influence musically, because I don't actually know the songs from Six, so I can honestly say it wasn't an inspiration. But it's certainly, I mean, I suppose Six has really shown you can write a historical musical and it can be very commercially successful. And I think it's great that it's certainly, people have often said, oh, is it inspired by Six or based on Six? But I would say it's a coincidence. But I think the style of the music is very different. Like Six is very much a pop sound and is marketed very much as that. But our musical, I think, is tonally very different. It's very dark and very reflective. And I gather from what I know about Six that it's quite triumphant and declamatory. And maybe you can tell me, Lauren, what your experience of it is. But I think our show is taking it bit of a different track to Six.
And you were talking about, I suppose, inspirations. Did you have any music inspirations for this musical? Is there anything that any musical that you looked at to kind of help you along the way, I suppose?
Sure. I really love Stephen Sondheim's work. He's really a composer I really admire. So certainly Sweeney Todd, Passion, Sunday in the Park with George. I love those shows. Also neoclassical music I really like as well. So say Bartók or Stravinsky, and definitely Irish folk music. There wasn't any conscious reference, but it's having grown up playing traditional music and slow Irish airs, that kind of that form and that melody is always in my head when I'm composing as well. So that was definitely, I think it's some of the songs. If you looked, if you have to breathe, it's not obvious, but definitely I can see, oh yeah, gosh, that's one person that's saying, oh, it sounds really Irish, that song. And I said, oh gosh, I suppose it is actually, I never thought of that. So I think it just comes out of me, the Irish folk influence.
I know the album is out. Is there anywhere you can find it?
Yes, you can find our album from The Queen is Mad on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever streaming platform you like. So if you search The Queen is Mad musical, Tom James McGrath and Amy Clare Tasker, the album will come up. So we'd love you to give it a listen. Oh, so just for next year for The Queen is Mad, we're hoping to bring it to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So if there's anyone out there listening who'd like to maybe help finance that project, we'd love you to get in touch.
And I suppose tell us a little bit about the 2024 Styles and Drew Best New Song Prize. How did something like that come about? Like that's huge.
Sure. Yeah, and we're so honoured and thrilled to be nominated. So it's Styles and Drew are one of the foremost musical theatre writing teams in the UK. They wrote the new songs for the Mary Poppins musical when it was on the West End a few years ago. They've written a Wind in the Willows musical recently as well. But every year there's a competition. They're the judges for the best new musical theatre song in the UK from a new UK musical. So we submitted one of the songs from the show called Locked Away for that. We just submitted it and got shortlisted for the final. The songs are all going to be sung in the other palace. We're actually having Natalie Paris, who was coincidentally Jane Seymour in the original Six, going to be singing our song. So we're very excited to have Natalie
that
singing.
Is amazing.
I should probably listen to 6 before Natalie sings along, so I can. So it's very, very, very excited. So that's happening in a few weeks' time now.
And other than The Queen is Mad, tell us some more musicals or shows, I suppose, that you were a part of.
Can I talk about this other project that Amy and I are working on, which is it's a musical about Patrick Pearse? Is that?
Oh yes, amazing. Yes, go for it.
Yes, Amy and I don't really we don't like taking time off our so we try to. But so we're also writing a show called Rising, which is about Patrick Pearse, who's a man I've been researching a lot over the last couple of years. And the show is about his journey of self-acceptance, about accepting himself as a gay man and as a leader. We're hoping to bring that to Dublin next year for a workshop. In Patrick Pearse's birthplace, the house he grew up in Dublin, is now the Patrick Pearse Centre and is coincidentally a theatre, so we're hoping to do a workshop there next summer. Yeah, that musical is really it's going to have a lot more of an Irish flavour. The music still the same sort of neoclassical pop slant, but a lot more Irish influence, I think. And the show is really a journey about self-acceptance. Growing up, I was never taught that Patrick Pearse was a very sensitive man who wrote lots of studies on apparently on nurturing sensitivity in children. He was a school teacher, and he also wrote letters to himself, which he published in a journal. And he was apparently when he would talk on a public stage, he would light up the room and everyone would be captivated by him. But when he came off the stage, he was a very shy, awkward man, and apparently never fitted into school, was bullied a lot at school, and yes, had apparently spoke with a stammer, and is documented as having a cold, clammy handshake, and because he had a squint in one eye, also wouldn't look at people when he was talking to them, which apparently gave him an air of being quite aloof and distant. So I just thought it so interesting how a man could captivate an audience that could literally lead the 1916 rebellion, would also have so much self-hatred and doubt. And he clearly overcame a lot of that self-hatred to get to the level he got. And so the show is about how he is learning to accept himself on the backdrop of the Rising. So it happens during the 1916 Rising, and Patrick Pearse learns to accept himself for who he is.
I'm getting a kind of sense of a historical theme throughout your musical theatre writing. Is that like something that you want to continue?
I think Amy and I would both like to do a musical that's not a historical musical for our next one. But yeah, it's I suppose because there are so many great stories out there that haven't been told yet and haven't been turned into musicals. I don't really know how that's come about, but it's certainly musicals I've written in the past haven't been historical. They've been totally original. And I would like to, I think, try something more comedic and upbeat and potentially an original story for the next show. But two's enough for now, Lauren. So we'll get these two up and running first.
And to put you on the spot, I suppose, for the final question, give me your favourite musical theatre song.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that question. I really like Send in the Clowns from A Little Night Music by Stephen Sondheim. It just always makes me be really sad. It's such a beautiful melody, and the lyrics are very deep. I like how accessible it is, but it's so deep as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.